female bell curves are different from male bell curves across the company? Do you know that females are underpaid for the same job in the same location? And we all know these answers actually at industry level. But reality is that we throw this data in front of someone and says, okay, so what do I do now? So then you came back to the insights, generating some action, saying, okay, next time around when we run performance management processes, we will see a female bell curve too, and validate that there is no silly thing, unbiased, completely unconsciously driven, actually causing the bias in the system, because most of the managers are males, and you're rating more females. And so how do you make sure that happens? So how do you train people on stuff? Does work from home create a bias in someone's head about someone's capability to grow and promote? And in this world, when we're moving to a virtual workforce scenario, how do we change the mindset that work from home doesn't necessarily mean that he's not ambitious enough, or she is not wanting to get promoted, or she doesn't have other aspirations? So how do you break some of the myths within the organization and then get them to decide, saying, is this important enough for the company? And then we go about saying, now we know this has to be fixed. How do I do this? I go out and we meet people around and say, okay, do you have competencies building a model which can predict this better? And we go out and meet people. Praful and me actually meet an external partner every month, one. We go out and just keep meeting people, because that's what gives us some level of understanding of what's out there, what's happening, what we can bring into the company, and then we decide whether it makes sense to experiment, pilot some runs, and do with it. It's all about experimenting eventually. The biggest challenge is leadership to notice it and take action on it. Otherwise, it's just some nice, cool, geeky work to do, but no action taken. Our objective within the group that we run in Genpact is about finding insights and implementing some changes. So can I force people to take leads if they have leaves? Because people accumulate leaves for next year because they have other plans, but can I force them to take leaves? Can I run with more process-oriented interventions which can ensure that people are fairly treated within the diversity angle? So those actions are something that I own, and we centralize it through my HR organization, making sure that my stakeholders are aware that these are experiments that are running. And some will pass, some will fail. We are working with Zombie on defining what makes a frontline manager effective in the company. We went with this approach to our leadership, saying this experiment might fail, and it might just give us the same answer that you already know by your gut feel, your experience. It's fine. At least you're sure that I'm convinced that this is the answer to this question. There's no second guessing about this. So we're also trying to validate our experience of HR leadership that some of your gut feels could be right, some of mine may not be right. You might think it's right, but it's not. Later tells you something else. So those are experiments, and I think in my mind it's a journey, and you will learn on the process and get better at it. One of my key questions, Piyush asked me, who's the CHRO, says, so where to go from here? I said, well, this is a journey. You will get some exciting stuff on the way. Some will learn, some will ignore and move on to the next experiment. But that's all it is all about. It's all about experimenting with your data and validating your hypothesis, your biases in your head, and checking if we actually have those in our organization. You think that it's all fair and nice and transparent, but human mind work everywhere. You want to validate it with data. So that's all I had to talk about.
Got it. I think if I hear your story, essentially the way you have set up your team is by borrowing talent which was already sort of in-house, and then you're also leveraging external expertise as well. Now, before I go into more details, one question to both of you, and we'll start with you, Siddhartha. As you reflect on the journey in Genpact, what are those specific skills as well as traits? I think in the morning you were talking about, one example was that you don't really need large teams, but you need people with right mindset. In your experience, what are those traits as well as skills that have really given best results for you?
We are not setting up a research organization. So this is not just about feeling excited about something. A lot of my colleagues in analytics business will be very excited with doing something interesting, like building an artificial intelligence model, predictive model, very exciting. But it has to convert into real-time action. So what we actually do is we make sure that we understand first the business problem we're trying to address. We convert the business problem into a mathematical problem. Okay, we say, okay, this can be converted into a mathematical problem. We use our statisticians team that we have built out, convert this mathematical problem into a typical mathematical solution, which thereafter needs to be massaged and validated through functional inputs to convert into a business solution. Because statistics might tell you A or B, but when you come down to the floor and say, but this doesn't make sense to me, but this would mean that we have to change policies for the entire organization, and it doesn't work right now. So that's when we validate these mathematical solutions to a solution. So I think it's important to always have something to solve for, otherwise it's just an experiment. You don't want to run experiments. A lot of people give you ideas of do this at SC, right? He said everybody's a view on HR, right? Why can't you test this? Why can't you test this? But what are you trying to solve? Are we trying to solve something? So that's where we go after. Business impact is important, and making sure that the HR functional leadership is part of that whole process of understanding what we're trying to test and are we on the right track, because unfortunately statistician can go here and there, which is okay, that's their creative genius around it. But someone has to tell them that, have you tested for this? Because this might be interesting. Distance from the office is sometimes a very important variable for late evening females. So how do you validate that? So these are inputs that HR can only provide. So
your approach is that you have statisticians and then you also augment the team with functional advisors.
I don't expect the HR guys to become statisticians. They should focus on HR.
What about you? I mean, what has been your experience? What kind of skills do you have?
Yes, so in my team we have different diverse skill sets. We have visual developers, BI, as I said, we have HR people, working as in the domain of analytics, who do a lot of descriptive analytics, and we do have a lot of statistical modelers as well. But to me, the beauty of analytics is not to build a dashboard or a wonderful model. The beauty of analytics is to implement it. Okay, and for that you need a lot of business acumen. You need to talk the same language and solve the same problem, which is on top priority of the leaders. So very often, one of my what I tell to my team is that yes, anybody can build a model, okay, but do you really understand the business and how this model is going to get implemented to the last person? So that competency needs to be built, from an overall analytics perspective. Now, you cannot buy that competence. You really have to build it with the organization's DNA and organization's structure. So that is something which very consciously, whether it is my manufacturing analytics, my finance, risk domain, my business, I understand the business first and then solve the problem with the other side.
Now, one question that I have is, we all know that the market of data scientists and statistics, it's like really hot. So what has been your experience? I mean, have you found challenges in terms of hiring talent? How are you differentiating, and also how are you assessing? Because we are talking about the fact that these are people for whom we need certain skill sets, but also certain mindset. So how do you make sure that you are capturing that in the hiring process?
Yes, so there's definitely a demand-supply gap in this area. We struggle to hire and expand the team. I do a lot of campus hiring. I make sure that I have a lot of people joining Fresco campus, so we can mold them accordingly right from the business perspective. But we also hire a lot of lateral experts who are functional and domain experts, technical experts. So if I have to hire, say, a Python coder, I'll not be able to groom that as quickly as I'm able to tap it from the market. So it really depends on the skill sets, but from a long-term analytics strategy, I see this to be, the analytics team to be the incubator of the future business leaders. So what we try to do, consciously have done is, let's spend 3 to 5 years in this team, and then we're going to put you into the front-end businesses, where now you'll be adept with the skill sets and the mindsets and the tool set to take up effective decisions in the front line.
Got it. So that's your EVP and your career pathing promise.
Yes. So even within the HR function, so when we hire management trainees from HR business schools, we tell them that first 2-3 years get an overall width of experience around analytics, and then choose a specific domain or the area of choice which we want. So we are treating analytics as a big incubator for future business leaders in the organization.
Okay. And is there any difference in the way you're assessing them, or is it that you basically do technical interviews using data?
Yeah, it's just technical interview. It's a combination of qualitative and quantitative assessments. So it depends clearly what kind of jobs I'm going to. If I'm going to say Indian Statistical Institute or an IIT, I would want more statisticians and operations research guy. If I'm going to a business school, I would expect different kind of skill sets. So we have kind of clustered our target areas.
What about you? What has been your experience?
We had an advantage, obviously, because we have a running business, supporting business clients. So for us, doing something for internal consumption is always second priority because the customer comes first. So one of the things that we've experimented within our business is to crowdsource. So we have an idea, we have a project which we have agreed with the stakeholders saying this is the project we will run for next 2-3 months. We post it on a common career opportunity post. So our internal talent, who's anyways working with the client, potentially would want to kind of experiment something different, new, and we are there to obviously coach and help them understand what HR analytics is all about. That has worked well for us. It's always a struggle to find someone externally who understands HR and understands stats. And that's why I keep saying, do not mix the two. Hire the statistician and get a smart HR person who understands little bit data, has curiosity to understand the underlying issues. Both the teams can sit together and actually hash it out. It's not rocket science.
One of the unique aspects of this discussion is I could clearly see two models where you have obviously almost like a full-time in-house team, whereas you are, I think, using more of a crowdsourcing model where you may not have resident team within you, and these are two different ways of how you could really structure the organization. Now, in your experience, how is the team really structured, and what are the pros and cons of having the team with you, sitting with you, with the business teams? I mean, where is it really sitting right now?
So we have a central analytics center of excellence. It's a centralized function.
Okay.
And we work very closely with the business to combinedly take projects and solve those projects to.
So your HR analytics team is actually sitting in analytics and not HR?
In analytics, not in HR. So the statisticians and the data scientists, they actually run across domains. So for them, it doesn't matter whether they are solving a financial model or building a predictive model. But I do have verticals, within the experts in say HR and finance and manufacturing. So they augment the business. And then we combinedly create OD interventions in the HR to go and help with the businesses to design it. So a big portion of team's time is actually to design the right OD intervention based on the analytics core engine and to implement in the businesses.
Okay. What about you?
So for us, again, as I said, we incubated a smaller team because we are actually doing more of a ecosystem of partners with some crowdsourcing internally. So our central teams are very 2 to 3 people. And that sits with the corporate HR organization, and that allows us to kind of get inside the corporate circles and saying what's bothering you today, and what kind of stuff you need help on because you're struggling to answer the question. So then we kind of go around, do some little bit of evangelization and say, we've met this vendor who can clean up your sourcing team completely and automate this whole process. So they get excited, say, okay, can I have a meeting with another meeting, and then we get down to project management process. So we keep it central so that we can go inside the organization, understand what are the key issues being faced.
Say final 2 weeks for, I'm sure that there are a lot of people in this room who want to set up their function, or if you already have, you may want to take it to maturity. From your experience, 1 or 2 takeaways or your learnings that you want to share?
Early success is important. Any change management process will tell you that early success is important. So don't try to boil the ocean. Don't say I will solve everything that exists. Just take one problem at a time. Scope it small enough to create excitement that this is interesting. Can you do more? And then we go from there.
Got it. What about you?
Well, I'll resonate with that. Building credibility within the HR function is key. Let's not jump into shiny golden objects. Walk before you run, crawl before you walk. I think that's as long as it's in the right direction. So whether you're doing dashboards, whether you're doing predictive models, whether you're doing descriptive analytics, it's very important to build credibility towards that direction. Otherwise, improper change management will only result in abrupt ending of those models.
Alright, thank you so much. I know that we are running short of time, but maybe we can take a couple of questions. So, any questions from the audience?
Yeah, I have a question.
Okay,
So it's
so
not
go ahead.
directly linked to firstly I want to thank the panelists, they are very good for the very nice session. I just want to know one thing. There are 5, I come from manufacturing sector, and there's 5 generations working under one roof. So what is according to you, what is a very effective and impactful model as a learning which can be implemented for a manufacturing sector?
Yeah, okay, so I have the same problem. I have 5 generations of workforce within my organization. And it is very important, for me it is very important not to lose on the experience. Okay? That experience of historical culture and the expertise around that is very, very valuable. So what we try to do from an analytics perspective, if I'm a very senior leader, I would augment it with some really energetic young postgraduates or young talent and combine a mentor-mentee relationship and make sure that the ownership lies on the senior guy to make it successful. So from an analytics perspective, one of the things which we do is we don't make project managers as they're from the analytics team members. We make project managers from the business guys, and the analytics teams helps them to solve that problem. So far it has worked very well from an adoption perspective. When the ownership has been there. Otherwise, you don't want to preach the choir and then get disheartened if they don't agree with you.
No, but the question is, how do you cater to such a diverse group?
Keep asking.
So
I mean,
just
it will be a
quick-
segmented
yeah,
approach.
Just quick, it's about personalization, finally, mentioned. So if there are 5 generational workforce, depending on their engagement drivers are very different. The motivational drivers are very different. It's human, right? Different stages of life have different drivers. So are you able to understand those? Do you know enough to make some actionable changes in the way you treat them? Okay? That's very important, and that's where data will come into play. You run a lot of engagement surveys. I'm sure you run a lot of engagement surveys. Can you cut it by generations? Can you cut it by millennials versus baby boomers and blah blah blah, and see if there are differences that come into play? And then you can say, okay, for this group, this is what we'll try to do differently. That would be a way.
So does buying talent analytics has its risk? Does it bring, okay, that domain and company understanding? So do you want to make that question?
So yeah, I think there's always a risk in everything that you do, internally or externally. People will still make a huge scene about it. You wasted money. So from our perspective, you have to go with the risk of saying, it's not like I outsource something to someone and then I forget about it. I can't leave that to the partner, because partner is also coming with an expectation out of it. So from our perspective, we have to help coach the whole process, because context is what we have. They don't have the context. They have the math, they have the stats, but context is with me. So I have to actually handhold the process till they get it right first time. And this is an iterative process. Models, like we saw earlier, don't get built first time right. Models are iterative processes over periods of time. You have to have confidence that this will come up. So from our perspective, you will have to go together and solve this together. You can't outsource a company saying now you figure it out. You can't do it.
Alright, please feel free to ask questions for both Siddhartha and Paritosh, and we're more than happy to give an answer to that. So on that note, thank you so much for